Chapter 7, Gyan Vigyan Yoga, the Yoga of Knowledge and Realization. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Kripa Srimurtaye Srimati Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Maharaj Iti Namine. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Verse 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Shakta Manaparta Yogam Yuyan Madasrayaha Asamsayam Samangramam Yatajasyasi Tachtrinu. Bhagavan Sri Krishna said, O Partha, please listen. When the mind is attached to me and one practices yoga and takes full shelter of me, then you will certainly be able to know me. Verse 2. Gyanam teham savigyanam idam vaksham yasye shataha yajnatvat neha bhuyonya jnatvayam avashishyate. I will explain to you this knowledge and its realization. Once you understand this, there is nothing else in this world that remains to be known. Verse 3. Manushanam sahareshu kaschajatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kasyamam veti tatvataha. Amongst thousands of men, one may try to achieve perfection. Amongst those rare persons that endeavor for perfection, one may actually know me. Anuvritti commentary by His Divine Grace Jagad Swami Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Maharaj. This chapter of Bhagavad Gita is entitled Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Jnana means knowledge of the self as distinguished from non-self, or knowledge that the self is not the body. Vijnana means realized knowledge or realization of one's intrinsic relationship with Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam also mentions Gyan and Vijnana as follows. Gyanam parama guyam meyat vijnanam samanvitam sarahasham tad angam chagrihana gaditam maya. Knowledge, Gyan, about Krishna as described in the Vedic literatures is very confidential, and it has to be realized, Vijnana, in conjunction with the secrets of devotion. That was the Srimad Bhagavatam. When we speak of knowledge, modern man immediately thinks of scientific knowledge, which he deems to be most perfect. However, Gyan in Bhagavad Gita refers to that knowledge of the self as distinguished from the knowledge of matter or scientific knowledge. Knowledge of matter is called aparavidya, and it is quite distinct from the knowledge of the self in that it never leads to self-realization. Since the beginning of the rationalist movement some 5 centuries ago, science has completely rejected the idea of consciousness as independent of matter. Many scientific theories have been presented to explain the origin of the universe and the origin of life, such as the Big Bang and Darwinian evolution, but these explanations remain mere theories, lacking conclusive evidence. For centuries, scientific and theistic communities have been at odds with each other, but recently it appears that the two may finally be drawing closer. Leading persons in the scientific community are willing to accept consciousness as a scientific fact. Indeed, biologist and stem cell therapist Dr. Robert Lanza has of late rocked the scientific world with his book, Biocentrism, How Life Creates the Universe, in which he postulates that consciousness has evolved matter and not that matter has evolved consciousness. If this current trend continues, then indeed science may very well be on the path of Gyan. The worldview of consciousness being the origin of matter has taken a long time to manifest. But as Krishna says in verse 3, those who endeavor for perfection are very rare, and rarer still are those who actually understand Krishna. To this end, all learned and educated people in the world should take lessons from Bhagavad Gita. Verse 4. Bhumirapo nalo vayo kamano buddhir evacha ahankara itiyame bina prakritir astada. Earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are the 8 different elements that constitute my material nature. Verse 5. Apareyam itastvanyam prakritam vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. However, you should know that there is another, superior to this inferior nature. It is conscious potency that consists of the living beings and maintains the universe. Verse 6. Itadyoni nibhutani sarvanyit upadaraya aham krishnasya jagata prabhava pralayastata. Try to understand that all beings are manifest from these 2 sources, and that I am the cause of the creation and annihilation of the entire universe. Anuvritti commentary by Srila Guru Maharaj. The basic material elements that comprise the universe have been mentioned here. Earth, Bhumi, water, Apa, fire, Anala, and air, Vayu, are, for the most part, easy to comprehend, whereas Kam, the invisible element, is rather more difficult. Kam is defined as accommodating space for existence. For a long time, modern science has rejected the Bhagavad Gita's concept of space as an element. However, once again, the scientific community finds itself facing serious problems wherein an elusive element must be present in the universe in order for them to explain how the universe works. This element, physicists say, may comprise up to 80% or more of the universe, but it is unknown to them and is thus far undetectable. They have called this dark matter. The first person to provide evidence and infer the existence of the phenomenon of dark matter was the Swiss astrophysicist Fritz Zwicky of the California Institute of Technology in 1933. Zwicky applied the Virial theorem to the Coma cluster of galaxies and obtained evidence of unseen mass. Zwicky estimated the cluster's total mass based on the motions of galaxies near its edge and compared that estimate to one based on the number of galaxies and total brightness of the cluster. He found that there was about 400 times more estimated mass than was visibly observable. The gravity of the visible galaxies in the cluster would be far too small for such fast orbits, so something extra was required. This is known as the missing mass problem. Based on these conclusions, Zwicky inferred that there must be some non-visible form of matter that would provide enough of the mass and gravity to hold the cluster together. That was the beginning of the search for dark matter. 78 years later, science is still looking for dark matter. They know it is literally everywhere, but it escapes detection, and thus they are unable to observe it. Millions of taxpayers' dollars are spent every year by Western scientists in the search for dark matter. Nothing has yet been discovered. However, the Srimad Bhagavatam identifies a material element that among its other qualities is, for the most part, elusive. It is all-pervading, but simultaneously it is undetectable. That element, according to Bhagavatam, is called Nabhas, or as mentioned here in Bhagavad Gita, Kam. The activities, qualities, and characteristics of the Kam element can be observed as accommodating space, room for existence. Space itself, both internal and external, is the element Kam. This then, if taken notice of by physicists, may very well fit nicely into the missing mass problem. Kam, being a material element, could theoretically be assigned a numerical code. Then they might find what they're looking for. In the Vedic way of thinking, a physical element is secondary to its qualities. When the qualities of a particular thing are understood, it is as good as or better than having the gross object at hand. In that sense, modern science has already discovered dark matter, because they have understood something of its qualities. They just haven't realized it yet. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the following verse. Bhutanam chidra dartritvam bahirantaram evacha pranindriyatma dishyatvam navasho vritti lakshanam. The activities and characteristics of navas can be observed as accommodation for external and internal existences of all living beings, namely the field of activities of the vital air, the senses, and the mind. That was Srimad Bhagavatam. This verse is the potential basis for great scientific research work. It explains how the subtle forms are generated from navas, what their characteristics and actions are, and how the tangible elements, namely air, fire, water, and earth, are manifested from the subtle form. Bhagavatam does not simply list the basic material elements, but explains quite scientifically how those elements evolve from the most subtle plane of existence up to the divisions of the universe. This is quite elaborate and scientific indeed. Yet for science to take full advantage of this understanding of matter and to discover how the universe came into being, they will have to do more than just add Kam to their table of elements. They will have to add Ahankara, false ego, Mana, the mind, and Buddhi, intelligence. For indeed, Bhagavad Gita lists these as material elements. Furthermore, these elements, Ahankara, Mana, and Buddhi, are categorized as even more subtle than Kam, because they are closer in character to consciousness, Atma. Beyond the gross and subtle material elements being added to the scientific table, Bhagavad Gita says that a complete understanding of existence and reality is not possible without adding two transcendental anti-material concepts, namely Atma and Paramatma, consciousness and superconsciousness. This, it seems, science struggles with even more than dark matter. We have dubbed these light matter. Mind and intelligence should not be confused with the self or Atma. Mind and intelligence have not arisen out of matter, as some philosophers or scientists have suggested. Last in the list is Ahankara, or false ego. All these are material elements which manifest from the apara prakriti, or the inferior energy of Krishna. These gross and subtle elements make up the material body and cover the self within. Those conditioned by material elements consider the body as a self, but Krishna says that there is another energy of his, a superior energy, which is a conscious potency and consists of all living beings. The Bhagavad Gita clearly explains both the gross and subtle material elements, as well as consciousness and superconsciousness. Any theory that does not include all these elements is surely inadequate. Verse 7. Mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutrimani ganaiva. Dhananjaya, there is nothing superior to me. All things rest upon me, just like jewels strung upon a thread. Verse 8. Rasoham apsukanteya pravasmi shastri suryayo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdake parusham nrishu. I am the taste of water and the light of the sun and the moon, O son of Kunti. I am the syllable Om found in all the Vedas. I am the sound in space, and I am the masculinity in man. Verse 9. Punyaganda pritivyam cha teyaschasmi vipavaso jivanam sarva bhuteshu tapaschasmi tapasvishu. I am the original scent of the earth. I am the luster of fire. I am the life of all creatures and the penances of the performers of austerities. Verse 10. Bijamam sarva bhutanam vidiparta sanatanam buddhir buddhi matamasmi tejas tejasvinamaham. O Partha, know that I am the original cause of all living beings. I am the wisdom of the wise, and I am the power of the powerful. Verse 11. Balam balavatam chaham kama raga vivarjitam dharma virudo bhuteshu kamosmri bharatara shabha. I am the might of the mighty, which is devoid of passion and attachment. I am the desire to procreate, which does not violate the principles of Dharma. Verse 12. Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasas tamasas chaye mata eveti tan vidhi natvaham te shute mai. Also know that all things generated by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance originate from me alone. However, I am not in them, but they are in me. Verse 13. Tribir guna mayer bhaver ebhisarvam idam jagata mohitam na bijanati mam ebhya param avyayam. The whole world is bewildered by these three modes of nature. Thus, no one can understand me because I am superior to these modes and unchanging. Anuvritti commentary by Srila Guru Maharaj. Since the most ancient times, we find the same fundamental questions in the search for knowledge and meaning. Who are we? Where did we come from? Why are we here? How should we conduct ourselves? Is there life after death? These were questions in the minds of our ancestors, and we still ask the same questions today. The search for answers to these questions leads an intelligent person to conclude that consciousness is superior to matter and that there must be one absolute source from which everything in the universe and beyond emanates. Here Sri Krishna says that he is the singular cause of everything and that nothing is superior to him. He is the sum total of the universe and of all living creatures, but he himself remains separate from everything as the supreme individual. Throughout the yoga systems, we find that the chanting of mantras is highly recommended, and possibly no mantra is chanted more than Om or Omkar. This Omkar is described as the supreme combination of letters, A, U, and M, and is thus the primary Vedic mantra. Here Sri Krishna says that he is the Om found in the Vedic mantras, and as such, it is Krishna that is to be meditated on while chanting Om. In support of this, the Rig Veda states as follows. Om ityatad brahmano natistam namayasmat ucharyamana eva samsara bhayat tarayate tasmad uchate tarahiti Om asya jananto nam chidvitan mahasti vishno sumatim bhajamahe Om tat sat Tato Bhut Shivrit Omkarayo Vyakta Prabhavasvarat Yata Lingam Bhavato Brahmana Paramatmana. One who chants Om, which is the closest form of Brahman, approaches Brahman. This liberates one from the fear of the material world. Therefore, it is known as Taraka Brahman. O Vishnu Krishna, your self-manifested name, Om, is the eternal form of cognizance. Even if my knowledge about the glories of reciting this name is incomplete, still by the practice of reciting this name, I will achieve perfect knowledge. He who has unmanifested potencies and is fully independent manifests the vibration Omkara, which indicates himself. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are the three forms he manifests. That was the Rig Veda. Now the question may arise that if Om is not different from Sri Krishna, what then is the necessity to chant the Maha Mantra? Great acharyas such as Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Bhakti Vinod, Sarasvati Thakur, Swami B.R. Sridhara, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and others are all in agreement that Om helps us to the stage of liberation from material bondage. But the benefits of chanting the Maha Mantra continue even after liberation, helping us to develop spontaneous affection for Krishna and thus cultivate our eternal relationship with him. In the ontology of mantras, it is said that Om emanates from the flute of Sri Krishna. It then manifests as Gayatri Mantra, then as the Vedas, Vedanta, and Srimad Bhagavatam. The last verse of Bhagavatam recommends the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Nama Sankirtana Yasha Sarva Papa Pranasanam Pranamo Dukkha Samanastam Namami Harim Param. The chanting of the Maha Mantra can relieve us from all undesirable habits, all filthy characteristics, and all miseries. Chant the Maha Mantra. Nothing else is necessary. Take this. Chant the Maha Mantra and begin your real life in this dark age of Kali Yuga with the most broad and wide theistic conception. Let us all bow down to Sri Krishna. That was the Srimad Bhagavatam. One may chant Om, and certainly everyone should chant the Maha Mantra. Those who do this under the guidance of the spiritual master will certainly taste the fruits of self-realization.